Welcome, everybody. We are here for a webinar series today that is going to be talking about workforce needed to support broadband. And I would like to just let you know that this is brought to you by Waskawiwin, and Waskawiwin is the nonprofit that is supporting the Tribal Broadband Boot Camps, tribalbroadbandbootcamp.org. I'm Matthew Rantanen, the president of the Waskawiwin board, and I am, a handful of other things: National Congress of American Indians, American Indian Policy Institute, Southern California Tribal Chairmen's Association, and Golden State Net, among other things. Happy to bring a really neat panel together today to talk about the specifics of how to staff up an organization to be able to conquer this thing we call broadband. This is also brought to you by the tribalresourcecenter.net, a partner in efforts to collect and present information about broadband for tribes. So today we are going to start this in the order of Valerie Fasthorse. Valerie and I have been acquaintances, friends, colleagues, peers, jokesters for a number of years now, probably on the magnitude of over 2 decades. And so I will let Valerie introduce herself and her organization, and then I'll come back for the rest of the folks.
Thanks, Matt.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Valerie Fasthorse. I'm the IT of the Coeur tribe, which is located in North Idaho. We first built out our broadband network and established in 2003, and I've been following Matt before that, so I knew him before he knew me. I was reading about him. I have built up from the beginning up to about 13 employees right now and 2 contract employees. We have fiber and fixed wireless, and we have approximately 4,000 customers we can serve in our area, plus or minus. And that's just a little bit about me.
Cool. Thank you very much. And then let's see, next on the list will be Angela Diahkah. Ange, so Ange and I have had the pleasure of serving on the Waskawiwin board together, and we have been to a bunch of boot camps together. So Ange, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Angela Diahkah. I am from the Pueblo of Jemez, and I'm currently serving as the manager for Jemez Pueblo Tribal Network. We've had our services since 2020 and during COVID, and it started out with 16 employees, and then kind of went down, and now we have a new project happening. So now we're up to 15 employees, which are permanent at this point. So we got a lot of good things happening for us.
Thanks, Ange. And then last but not least, Miss Linnea Jackson from the Hoopa Valley tribe. And Linnea and I have known each other longer than I can remember. I can't remember the first time we interface. I don't know if we were fighting something at the California Public Utilities Commission, or I don't know, just hanging out on some sort of a webinar or some sort of a Teams meeting or Zoom meeting somewhere in time. But we've been together at boot camps. We've gotten to host a boot camp in the Hoopa territory, and have been involved and engaged with the Hoopa folks for a long time. So very excited to bring Linnea on here. Linnea?
So good afternoon, everybody. My name is Linnea Jackson. I'm a member of the Hoopa Valley tribe. I currently serve as the general manager for the Hoopa Valley Public Utilities District. Just a little bit about us. We are a tribal utility that manages foundational utilities. We're domestic water, irrigation, solid waste management, broadband since 2020, and we're working on energy projects as well as energy resiliency and microgrids. So we've been established for the last 43 years. We continue to expand. And we look forward to being able to build out, provide services to our tribal community in Aboriginal territory. And that's a little about me. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Cool. So that sets the panel up for us. So I think we'll just dive right into some questions and let's just do this, dialogue style where, if something sparks interest from what somebody else said, let's just pile on, because I think it's very helpful to be conversational and informative with each other's comments. All right. So you all noted the size of your organization as it currently stands. Has that been different over time? Did you just, jump right out of the game with 13 staff or 15 staff? And can you give us a sense of what caused major shifts in like where you went from starting to potentially where you are now? And then, what does the future look like in that staffing number? Who would like to go first? And Angie, maybe?
I will.
Oh,
Sure.
Valerie.
Go ahead.
Either way.
Well, I guess when we first started this project, we didn't know what we were really in for. And there was just a call out for people to come and install Wi-Fi on the reservation. So at the time, I was an IT technician for the BIA and kind of roaming around and whatnot. So I kind of have IT background. And when there was a call for the actual employees, it was basically whoever was interested, and all the actual verbiage in the flyer was internet installers needed. So that meant anybody that knew how to install internet, not knowing what exactly it was. So we just got a whole lot of diverse people that applied for it. And at the end of the day, there wasn't a lot of us that kind of had an IT background. And starting from no infrastructure, having that, just getting to know where this was actually going. And once the network has been implemented, it's not something that's only temporary, but something that's going to stay with us for a long time. And while all that happened, we were just temporary contractors. There was 16 of us that got hired. And within a year, I believe only 4 of us stayed behind. And the 4 of us were actually doing all doing troubleshooting, doing new installs. And when we were going to be expanding to fiber to the home, there was another call for people to get hired. And this time, it's our goal was to hire majority of our tribal members. And our goal is to basically diversify them so that way they can help support the network. But at the same time, this broadband is sort of new to native countries. So it's hard to find somebody that already is a profession in this field. So with the open mindset, we went from a team of 4 to a team of 19, literally overnight. We got a bunch of brand new workers straight out of high school. They're computer literate. We just have to teach them and show them and train them what they need to know as far as broadband and how to support the network. We do find difficulties sometimes in expertise as far as provisioning equipment or making those adjustments within the network to make it work. We're still struggling in those areas, but we do have consultants that are professions that actually do all the configuring and all that. But I believe for anybody that's starting new, it has to be a mixture of people that are kind of like network engineers that have been in the field for a long time. You need a lot of those. Then you need the middle ground people who kind of know a little bit of this and that, like a little bit of hardware and a little bit of software. Then you have your technicians as well who are computer literate, but they're not fully trained, but you can kind of give them direction and mold them into who you want them to be as technicians, and kind of how to fit into this whole scheme of broadband in Native country.
Kind of like a chessboard.
Yeah. So I think now if we were to have done things differently in 2020, I would have probably just added more people with like a little bit of IT experience to kind of just help us complete sentences, I guess you could say, because sometimes when there's technical issues that are going on, I know what's happening, but it's just that if you're not completely in that field, sometimes it doesn't make sense what you're trying to do or when you're trying to troubleshoot. But there are people that have passion to fix things and kind of just get things that say like a technician would get. And my biggest example would be say if you have car issues and you're trying to start a car, not everybody is a mechanic. You kind of have to think out of the box. You kind of have to know what you need to do to turn it on. So if your car doesn't start, you're not going to go get a bottle of Windex and clean your windshield and try again. So it's just like, trying to look at it logically, I guess, is my main thing.
Yeah,
so so I'm just trying. It would just be nice with a little bit of expertise, but it's also good that you have fresh mindset that is also out on the field, and you can kind of mold them to who you want them to be. And as people take interest, like some of our technicians, then they can go out on their own and start seeking more and motivate themselves and kind of just cultivate our own leaders in that aspect.
Very cool. And I like the logo on the shirt, by the way. So let's switch over to Valerie, and then we'll follow up with Linnea. Valerie, how's it been for you? I mean, you're the longest running ISP, maybe other than TDV Net that I know of. So
I think I'm behind you because what started this whole thing was, everyone's story. The local provider wasn't interested in upgrading or building out their infrastructure here for broadband. So, like other tribes, we had to do it ourselves in order to make it happen. So in the beginning, I was actually reading about Matt before I met Matt. He did the Hewlett Packard HP REN. What did that stand for?
So yeah, Hewlett Packard was the grant that the Tribal Digital Village came from. Right. And then we worked with, and it was confusing. HP REN is High Performance Wireless Research and Education Network. So we worked with Hans Werner Braun. He taught us how to do the wireless, and then TDV ran with it.
Yeah, so I read about you before I met you, and I said, HP REN, well, we need to do that. And so I went out and I found a broadband engineer, and he built the first ISP in North Idaho, and he's been around since DARPANET, I mean, the way old days. And so he knows everything about building out networks. And so I contracted with this person named Tom Jones to help me design a network. I applied for a Community Connect grant, waited and was awarded. And so we started with $2.8 million, and we built out a wireless network copycatting Matt. Tom designed it, and then he was my very first employee. Then after we designed and built it, then we needed someone to do our front office, customer service and billing. So we hired another person to do front office. And so I had 2 employees in the very beginning. We didn't have installers. We actually put the equipment, the CPEs in a bundle, bagged it up, put instructions inside of it, and handed them out. And people were lining up. They were coming in. They were doing it wrong a lot, and we would have to do a truck rollout to go fix it. But some of them did it right. But yeah, so that's how we started. It was just, an operations manager and an office manager and myself, and self-installation. We had dial-up back then too, because it was still a thing, and that was our cheap package, our affordable $9.95 a month package. And then our other packages were like 256K to 1.5 megs, which was screaming fast back then, if you can believe it. Really fast. Just like, so we brought the reservation from dial-up speeds to broadband speeds back in the day of 256K to 1.5 megs. We sold the 256K for $19.95, and then at the same time, AOL was selling 21K for $21.95. So we were underselling them. And then we were selling 1.5 megs for $99.95, which at the time, the local provider was selling 1.5 megs T1s for like $1,400 a month. And so we were like disrupting the industry. But it was just the three of us in the very beginning, and we grew very, very slowly to what we are now.
Yeah, I think some of us that started that far back, we didn't, it was broadband-ish, right? So
Yeah.
So we were providing small packages. It was hard to scale our access as an ISP, let alone scale the providing service to the house. So, you scaled as you could afford it, and some of that upstream bandwidth was so unaffordable. It was almost impossible to get going. All right, so let's switch over to Linnea. Linnea, how's it gone for you? I mean, I know your organization pretty well, but I imagine things have changed in the last few months that I haven't seen. But like, take us through, sort of the ramp up, if you will.
Absolutely. So we're going to go back to 2018 really quickly. I was actually working as the realty specialist at Hoopa Land Management. And so I really started this journey as a company that was building on the reservation, no tribal consultation, not working with the council, and engaging when you're working and building on tribal land. So I was dealing with it more of a right-of-way land aspect, and being that moderator between council, because we didn't have fiber at the time. So I kind of progressed that. I became the general manager a year later of Hoopa Public Utilities, and I kind of brought the project with me. There was different progressions of applying for broadband, understanding that it really fit with our utility model. It probably should be held and housed under here. And then obviously COVID hit, just like my partner Angela. So, we're looking at 2020, when we're in a pandemic. We had already submitted an application to the CPUC for their advanced service fund. So we had an application and we had some sort of design. The pandemic hit. The tribe has 60 different departments. They ended up shutting down 30 of those for being non-essential. All of our schools were closed. People were having to work from home. So luckily, we had an IT person at the medical center who ended up coming over and becoming our broadband manager. And his name is Matthew Douglas, and he goes by Spaggy. I'm sure a lot of you know him. Big ups to him. So he kind of comes and pairs with the technical knowledge. And he and I as partners have been able to grow this over the last 5 to 6 years. So at the very beginning, we received CARES funding as seed money to start this. Lessons learned, we probably would have done things differently, but we're operating in pandemic conditions. We're trying to get a network up and running to address like critical functions. So we started off in the broadband division of really having 3 or 4 employees. So since then, that's grown a little bit. And when you're thinking about those initial people, just like Angela said, you might have different skill sets that you would have brought on at the very beginning. It was very important for us during that time to have really strong consultants. We attended the tribal broadband boot camps, which gave kind of a field lab analysis to where we can get into networking and the wireless technology and get your hands dirty and be able to talk with people who have experience in the industry, that are just good-natured people that are wanting to share and impart knowledge. So, we've been a big part of the tribal broadband boot camps, which has really helped us grow our skill set. I myself would like to attend every one, but as you know, we're completely busy. We've had the opportunity to host one, and I hope that can come around again. So now we are in a fact of having a NTIA tribal broadband connectivity program. So the grant funding allows us to be able to support our employees. We also have a joint build agreement with the California Department of Technology. So now we're looking forward to January of 27, when really that funding is has been expended, the projects are complete. How are we going to be sustainable with that? Hoopa Public Utilities has multiple divisions. Currently, 6 of those are specifically broadband. We have a broadband manager, we have a network systems analyst, we have 4 techs, and we also have a digital navigator who's providing digital equity services, working with our elder and youth and community events. So we are maximizing the infrastructure that we're building. Largely when we are trying to build out for a pandemic to provide critical services, you're not always thinking about those business functions. So here comes another arm of needing your customer service person, people that are like signing people up for contracts, handling the billing aspect, which is critical because you need the revenue in order to support ongoing functions. So it's also the business aspect of that that is actually becoming critical, especially when our grants have been completed. We're going to need sound customer services. We want to be, have 5 nines reliability. You need techs to be able to do, a specific tiered customer service calls. You need to be able to roll trucks if there's something they need to go fix. And we have ongoing management agreements to manage now not only the wireless, but also the fiber network that we're building. So it's a critical holistic array of different people, from someone like myself that's dealing with the contracts and the legal and some of the regulatory stuff, overall project management, to the actual technicians that are needed to keep this network operating and running. Another component is we are facilitating a new fund accounting project management network software. So that's another critical component is the solutions that you choose for management, which really need to be able to support all of your functions in a smooth process. So we're going through all of that. So what I'll say about the different employees, there's a vast array of skill sets. As tribal nations, we probably all have to wear multiple hats. So some of these employees are going to be doing multiple functions at once, and that's just how we're going to have to survive in order to facilitate the services in our area.
Very good. So moving into the next question, and I'm just going to throw a little moderator's prerogative here. Take us through your thinking on which roles were critical for you to have as your ISP was established and grew. And I'm just going to inject the fact that I think at least the 4 of us are probably potentially the key employee that is the catalyst to make all of this happen, right? So the position that you took, Valerie, the position, Angie, that you are holding the thing together and driving the workforce, and you, Linnea, seeing the vision of how to embrace broadband and put it in the utilities department and stuff. I think, and then, me with the TDV net system. I mean, I think that's probably, you need that champion to run with it. And that might be the 4 of us, but what we're looking for is the key employees or key roles that you've identified, over time. And I think, Linnea, as you were giving your examples, I think you probably named them off. I mean, you had Speggy, who is, key to running the broadband aspects of what you're doing. You have Abe, who's, your best customer outreach. And, we all work with Abe and he's wonderful. Perhaps now then you get into that business management person. But as we go through this, who are the key employees or the key positions or roles that really kind of, made the difference along the way? So Angie?
I would say our key employees would be the supervisors, the technicians, because you need the supervisors to kind of push the technicians to get the job done and make sure everything is implemented. And then what we didn't know when we first started would be the digital navigators, because the fact that on our specific tribal land, they never had internet. So then it's a lot of education. And then the language barrier, like with our elders, trying to just translate to them in our native tongue what is about to happen and what is being installed and what it's going to be used for. A lot of explanation was actually required. And I would see the project going in a different direction had we not had any tribal members serving these capacities. Because the fact that if just a stranger came knocking on your doors, and especially during COVID times, we're not supposed to be mingling or visiting anybody else, I would have seen like a lot of setbacks. But fortunately, the people or the team that we had actually spoke the language, and that's what our success was on. And then, of course, the engineers, because without them, if they don't design, then you don't really know where to start or how to implement.
Yeah, you can't do it without any of the groups of people that are doing the job. Sometimes it's a personality or sort of a relationship with the community that is the key role, right? So how about you, Valerie? Who are the key players, or what positions were the key players?
I agree that it's the engineers who design the network, but also monitor the network, because you have your daily operations, your network operations center. You have to keep an eye on every single device that's on your network to make sure everything is up and running at all times to the ultimate that they can. On top of that, I think would be my installers. I have my outside plant technicians with my who do the fiber to the home stuff. We have bucket trucks, splicing vans, things like that. So my outside plant trenchers and things. So my outside plant crew goes out and they do the fiber runs. And then I have also CPE and ONT installers that do the wireless stuff. And we have right now, we're hovering around 80 people are in the queue waiting to be installed. And it's been a constant for over a year. We just continuously have people in the queue. So my guys should never, ever, ever be bored. On top of operations, though, we also have like our administrative stuff. We have, I have to contract accountants. I don't have an in-house accountant. I don't have an in-house HR person. So I task someone to do that as a side to their regular job. I don't have a marketing person. I would love to have one. So as a component of Red Spectrum, as a component of the Coeur d'Alene tribe, we're constantly going through financial audits, and that's just like a headache for me. I hate audits. I'm not an accountant. I can't do numbers. I don't like it. But that's what eats up my time. And this year we finally got done with our FY25 audit. So I have to hire accountants to help me with that, because it's just stuff I don't want to do. I'm an IT director. I like to get on the desk and plug in cables or climb up and put it, I'm that person. Billing is key. So my office manager and selecting a billing software was critical for us in the very beginning. I think we use open source on the first day of our operations. We used Freeside, then we switched to Optigo, then we switched to Mac, which was very, very, very expensive, and we left, and now we're on Sonar, which is a really good provisioning software. So on shut-off day on the 10th, if they don't pay by midnight, it shuts them off, and then they come running in on the 11th, and the front desk is busy on the 11th. So just having all those critical components in there is key, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Linnea, did you have any other key employees? So you're doing massive construction right now. You're in the trenches, and you're really building out this network. Has a new job role come up that's been, like unexpectedly more important than others, or any you want to highlight?
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of support Angela and Valerie, because at the beginning, it's the broadband manager, it's that network systems analyst, especially when you're learning about networks. We have a 4-tower backhaul and 3 distribution towers. If any one thing goes along that, they need to be able to troubleshoot. They need to be able to identify where that outage issue is. So that's critical. But I forgot to mention our very, very important accountant. So she makes sure it's heavy duty. It's the payroll. It's getting the bills paid. It's those federal drawdowns that are so critical. And I think that goes unnoticed as supporting broadband networks. And you also mentioned your billing person. That's also our office manager, who's constantly billing, keeping up, doing those customer call and outreach and reminder of payments. So it's kind of progressed on the expertise that we need, and it kind of changes what becomes more important. So right now we're, just kicking off our construction, which will be until the end of December of 26. Next, it'll really become that business aspect of marketing, right? You're marketing your product, you're signing people up, you're selling services. We're looking to expand in our Aboriginal territory. So that's a different personality, because a lot of our techs just kind of want to get in and do the technical things. They don't want to have to be the customer support person, trying to sell and engage the project. It's almost a different type of personality. So you need all of those people to really holistically make the whole network be a success.
That's really funny about personalities, because I have a guy downstairs. He's my lead outside plant tech. And he's like a really introvert, and he's just like, don't talk to me. I talked to 2 people yesterday.
A lot of people in this space that really like their job, really don't like the people part.
Right.
Yeah. And it's interesting, over the years of the boot camps, we're at 4+ years now. We've seen a lot of introverts come to the boot camps and just absolutely no communication with a group, sitting there listening. And by the end of the boot camps, they're grabbing the microphone and talking away. They feel like they're in a comfortable space. And I think those of you, you've all attended a boot camp and been a part of it. I think that's an environment that maybe helps some of those introverts out of their shell.
Introverts unite.
So the next question I want to ask, and I'm just going to tell a little story about this, because we made perhaps a mistake, but a choice at the beginning of the Tribal Digital Village Network about whether or not to hire, the jack of all trades, or to find somebody that is specifically fitting a role. So like, you're an early ISP, you're going to build towers, you're going to trench, you're going to do construction level stuff, building with hands and, construction kind of stuff. You're going to configure things. You're going to, make cables, plug cables in, route cables, do all that kind of stuff. And then you're going to configure stuff, and you're going to, manage the software side of things, and you're setting up a design and doing all this different stuff. Do you want somebody that can do all of those things and just change hats? Or do you want to set up sort of departments where this team of 2 does construction, this team of 2 maybe hangs radios and runs cable and perhaps does routing and stuff like that, and then this one or this group is probably more suited towards business management and things like that? And if so, can you tell like why? Right? So with TDVNet, we're too small, right? We had to do everything. Each person had to do everything. But I figure if you had a grant come in, maybe you had the luxury of identifying people for their skill sets and setting up sort of like departments. So let's go through that one a little bit, Ange.
We're kind of at that point. I think now we have the funding to set up those specific persons to do a specific job. So right now we're kind of going through the trial of things where my original 4 people on the crew was everything. We're the installers, we're the navigators, we're the customer support, and we kind of did all that. And sometimes it was too much to handle. And now that we have an admin assistant who can help with a lot of the paperwork and a lot of the funding and keeping our accounts updated and the billing, which is a lot help. It means a lot to the team. And then we have our technicians who are specifically out in the field. But we just need a lot of training and a lot more hands-on to kind of compartmentalize these positions. As Valerie was saying, like she has her outside plant and then she has her ONT crew. It would be nice to have that. However, I believe kind of diversifying the team. I kind of want them to have a whole picture. So in case of staffing and if for some reason, anything happens, my technician should be able to support outside plant and whatever that happens in the NOC at the same time, know a little bit of the billing so we're not completely just dead in the water and we can keep moving forward to help people. However, my entire team is expected to be digital navigators. The fact that anybody can ask for help at any point in time. So the hard part of it was trying to earn the trust of our own people here on the reservation. And sometimes they don't let us know if their internet is down. But should they see any other worker, or people actually call my mom and let her know that their internet is down, then they let me know. So, and in order to open up people, trying to gain the trust of our own tribal members, should they ask any of the team members, they should have an answer for them, or they should offer some sort of assistance so that way we can get their services restored or up and running. So it would be nice to kind of have a certain team to go do this, like certain tasks and stuff like that. But at the same time, I think it's really important that everybody that's supporting the entire network has one job, and that's to keep the network up and running and make sure that we're taking care of our people. Whereas if we're shorthanded in one department, a little bit of their knowledge in different departments will allow them to be more successful.
Yeah, so even the introverts have to have that support structure in their chemistry.
Yeah.
Very good. So let's see, Valerie, you want to add on that at all?
So is the question on when to make a decision to grow?
Oh no, it's more a little more like are you capable of doing everything on the network, or is it time to like hire specific people that do specific tasks?
So I didn't mean to have like different crews. It just turned out that way logistically. So we only have so many bucket trucks. We only have so many trenchers and so many trailers to haul it. So it ends up that it's kind of when my guys, they were all hired to be installers, but they kind of migrated to what their favorite thing to do was. And if that's their favorite thing to do and that's how they're more efficient, then I'll say, okay, go ahead, and then kind of give them a new. They were all hired to be installers, but I give them a new title, outside plant, ONT CPE. So some of them don't want to haul around trailers and trenchers and bucket trucks. They just want to go drill holes, put things on the wall, and get it done really fast. And so it just ended up that way.
That's a great way to evolve. Like, bring them in, give them some general training in a certain space, and then let them sort of find their niche. If you have the ability to move people around and stuff, that's a really good way to go. Linnea, how did it go for you?
So kind of back to the original question, like, would we want a jack of all trades?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think it's really important to have that key leadership position because you're going to have to lead projects. But one thing about not diversifying is that if that person's out, if they're dedicated to another project, then sometimes it stops other projects from progressing. And so it also leads to burnout when there's too much demand. And that's kind of where we're at, is that we are, building, we're seeking other opportunities because we have to think for the future. We want this to be a success. We want to be able to be self-sufficient. And there's also that component of where, you're trying to push how state and federal entities look at tribal providers. We're not the AT&Ts or the Starlinks or, whatever the word is, that we're not that version of it. We're sovereign tribal governments and tribal providers that need a carve out for certain offsets as well. So you're also thinking about those regulatory and policy issues, building self-sustainability. So I think it's hard when you have one person that covers so many different facets, because if that person's not there, and that also leads to being able to delegate and cross-train your employees. So like Angela mentioned, if someone's not there, you at least have somebody that, can provide a professional response, pick up the pieces, and be able to figure that out. So I think it's important to delegate, cross-train, cultivate people's skills, but also sometimes you have to push them outside of their box to say, the person's out, I'm going to need you to step up for the team. So I think people also need that nudge.
Yeah, fully agree. So let's get into something else we're actually interested in talking about to share for other tribes and such is when to hire somebody, right? At what point are you like far enough along to hire somebody versus working with maybe a short-term contracted position instead? Or perhaps it's something you don't want to do internally or don't want to manage internally, and you're looking at potentially having a vendor relationship for a long period of time, so you don't have to bring that expertise in-house, but you just manage that vendor. So Angie, what's your perspective there? Whether you hire the person, contract the person, or you deal with a vendor?
In my perspective and in the current situation that we're in, we're specifically on a consultant basis, and they have a contract with the tribe, which they still are our go-to, because sometimes it is still frustrating. I'm trying to make sure that I man the team that is implementing the project with boots on the ground now. However, at the same time, if we're having issues with the network, none of us really might not have the whole engineer aspect really down to troubleshoot to the exact location or to know what's happening. But we still need to kind of rely on our consultants a lot, just to make sure that they kind of guide us through. So we're not fully sufficient or independent on our own just yet. And I believe that we do need the consultants as a contract or on contract, because there are going to be things that are happening that we just won't know what to do, and the engineers won't know exactly, or the vendors will know because it's their product that they need to support, and we're just the end user or the buyer for the certain products. So in that aspect, I would probably lean, or my thoughts would be to have short contracts and have the vendor come. But at the same time, when the vendor do come onto our tribal lands, that I push the team to actually go out and work alongside with them to see what's happening, and maybe one or two of the people on the team can kind of actually catch on, so that way, should anything like that ever occur in the future, we would have an idea of what to check, where to check, and what needs to be replaced.
Excellent. Yeah, and I just want to just dispel a myth for everybody that's attending this webinar or watches it in the future. None of the carriers on the planet do it in-house. They all contract out. They contract their construction, they contract their dig alert services, they contract everything. They house an umbrella that manages a lot of the stuff, but they hire out the expertise, or they scale by hiring outside contractors to do stuff. So why wouldn't tribes do the same thing in a capacity issue or, an expertise issue? And it's really great that you're shadowing those folks to learn those aspects of the business, so that at some point you could be completely self-sufficient. Valerie, did you want to touch on that one at all?
Yeah, so I think the critical people that we have decided to hire on full-time staff are, the installers, the people who are doing the day-to-day operations. But the things that I contracted out, I mentioned earlier, is accounting. I don't really have enough work for a full-time accountant, and so I have two accountants, and they both work part-time. One does daily accounting, and he spends maybe 15 minutes a day doing my accounting, and the other one spends maybe 5 hours a pay period doing other stuff for me. I also contract out sort of marketing. I just, like there's this company out there called Harper, and I recently brought a guy out, and he flew his drone around, and he's doing some local marketing assets for us. I don't contract out HR, but I do contract out my payroll processing, because that's a critical component, and I want a company to do it rather than an individual, because as the gals mentioned earlier, when you have one person who does it and they're gone, then the whole thing falls apart. So I actually outsource that to a company. So they have like 5 girls in the company. If one's gone, the other one can do it for me. Other than that, I think that my day-to-day operations, I definitely have to have full-time staff, because the demand is here. Like I said earlier, we have about 4,000 people in our service area. We have a take rate of 30% right now, so there's lots of room to grow. We have, like I said, 60 to 100 people in the queue at any given time. So that really drove the decision to bring people, installers, and outside plant crew on full time.
Nice. Linnea, I kind of know what's going on in your neck of the woods, so let's hear it.
Right. So we just had, with tribal governments, we just had an election. So we have a new chairperson and we have 3 new tribal council seats. So with that change in leadership becomes different initiatives. So we also have to be mindful that tribal council wants to us to train, wants to employ tribal members. 79% of our staff are natives, some Hoopa, some other tribes, but they really want to improve economic development. They want local expertise. So that's the ultimate goal. But when you're thinking about the question of like, when can you hire somebody? One constraint that we have is we just don't have enough office space. We're working in an antiquated building, and where are you going to put somebody? You don't want to shove them all, so you can't concentrate and have private space. So space configurations, I think it's really important for tribal WISP to have a business pro forma that's done. So you can look at, like, do you have expendable income? Can you afford the personnel, the fringe, the insurance, and the other cost considerations to be able to support that? And I think that we all have some level of consultants that we use for multiple things. Is it network expertise? Is it marketing? Is it design and analysis? So the ultimate goal is probably to have trusted consultants and partners, but the ultimate goal is to be able to outgrow that and gain expertise over time, so you can kind of cut down on the outside services that you need. But I think for smaller WISP, that's just the reality. But you really need to be making sure that you can continue to pay the bills, keep the lights on, and be able to support and provide a living wage, and not spread yourself too thin. So that's kind of the considerations we're having to make. I would love to hire more people because there's a gap. Can we afford it? Do we have the space? Is that good for us long-term sustainability? That's the questions and the analysis that we're doing now.
Perfect segue into my last question, which you don't already know about, and that is, given your situation currently and your workload and your future growth in the foreseeable future, do you have everybody you need on staff? If you had the resources, who's missing? What position is missing from staff? Who might that be? Linnea, go ahead and go, since you were on that vein already.
Absolutely. So I think that absolutely has to be a dedicated customer service position. So as we know, there's been a change in administration and funding. So the digital equity opportunities that we expected to be able to apply for on a federal and state level have been cut. So we now have our digital navigator, who's a natural customer service person, working with the community, engaged, might transfer over to customer service and those engagement activities. But we absolutely need dedicated customer service. We need on-call support, probably 24/7 or at least 8 to 5, maybe some weekends. We also need GIS. So we had some kind of transition in that. So when we're building, we're making sure that we have as-builts, that we know where our lines are at. So that's going to be important for future projects, that we need to know where our infrastructure's at. So it's also the GIS gap. We also probably need a couple of other Class A drivers. We do have several tower climbers. So I really think it's going to be the business aspect and customer service that's going to make the business sustainable. Once we have infrastructure, once we're growing out, I think that's going to be absolutely really critical.
Excellent. So Valerie, do you have all the staff you need? What's your dream edition?
My dream edition, even though I said I don't have time or wouldn't have enough work for him to do, would be, or her, an accountant, because
Full time.
when I'm in QuickBooks, or when I'm in our billing software and I have a question, I would love to be able to just run down the hall and say, hey, what's this? But instead I have to pick up the phone and wait, and then I forget the question. I get lost and forgot what I'm looking at, because I stare at QuickBooks every few days, and just kind of like Linnea said, that, you have to know your numbers. You have to know where you're at any given time. they come up, equipment breaks, can we afford to replace a part? Well, I have to go on QuickBooks and take a look and say, okay, yeah, we're doing good this month or whatever. Sometimes major things happen. So I would love to have an accountant. Marketing would be another one. Compliance, regulatory compliance. There's a lot of compliance reporting that goes into this. Right now it's between me and my admin assistant, but I'd really like to have someone just be dedicated to that, and I don't have to worry about 499A, 499Q, 481. I mean, the list goes on of what we have to do. I filled up a whole sheet of paper and a half of what our reports that we have to do. Send it to Jim at Mobius, and so he filed it with the FCC with, what was that order they did to get rid of?
Just recently,
yeah. FCC, delete. I filled a page and a half of that, delete. So anyway, yeah, compliance people. I think that's it.
Perhaps that accountant could also help you with reporting.
Yeah, give them the compliance.
Cool. Ange, what's the dream staff person or position you'd like to fill if you had the resources?
I would have to agree with Linnea because we are growing, and right now I think we're struggling with a lot of customer service, somebody to kind of just man the office while we're out in the field. We have our admin assistant, which is doing all our admin work for us, but she's also filling a lot of roles for customer service and helping people as they come into our office and kind of directing them. And we also took on the Verizon phone program for our tribal members. So people come to do payments, and we're kind of taking her away from her work. And it'd just be nice to have more customer service agents sitting there creating the trouble tickets as people call in. And now that we're getting a little bit bigger and expanding our services, we're starting to see a lot more people walking into our office, whereas we never had that before. And then also with the digital navigator classes and all the digital literacy classes that we're going to be offering, I just need more people to man the office, and instead of me trying to take them out of the field and leave them there, because there is work that needs to get done. So someday,
Right.
and like Linnea said, even if we have the means to hire, but where are we going to put them? We're stacking everybody.
Right, double-decker desks. So we've gone through about 52 minutes now of really interesting stuff based on some predetermined questions plus an additional one. Now you get a minute each. If there's anything else you want to add to this for those folks that are thinking about running or do run an ISP for their tribe and manage a network, any tidbit, any secret sauce, anything you want to share that that might be helpful to others. I'll start with Valerie.
Hi. So I would say that, you should always begin with the end in mind. Like you draw on paper napkins if you have to. You start doing your record drawings in your head, then you transfer it to documentation and paper, and then you go get it engineered and designed or whatever. So I think that it's really key and important that you document your work all along the way, because you wouldn't believe how fast time goes. And a couple years from now, you're trying to remember what port did what, or, you don't know. So you have to document your work all along the way. Also, I think that safety is an important factor. These guys are out there, and I always tell my guys who are there climbing ladders, climbing towers, it's like, if the girls who dance on poles have to wear a hard hat, so do you. And the other thing is communication. There's often times when a tech will go out and do something, they won't tell billing. And so a customer might have free service for a long time, and then she gets really mad and like, hey, how come you didn't document this? You didn't tell me. So, communication is key.
Very good.
Yeah, strategic planning. I think once a year at least, take the crew out for lunch or take them out on a boat ride or something, but have some sort of barbecue or something, and just loosen up and have strategic planning sessions with your guys so everyone's on the same page.
Nice. I like that. Angie, what, any tidbits?
Yeah, she's right. Valerie's right. Just making sure there's a lot of communications. If you're working with engineers, make sure like you just check to see how far they'll support you or any other support or any equipment cost and replacement, and making sure you have shelf spare in case you end up with a struck pole like us now. We don't have anything on spare, so we got to go and seek the last minute, whereas if we knew a lot ahead of time, we could kind of sort of stock up for incidents like this. Other than that, I say a lot of communication with anybody that you're working with to make this project successful. Just keeping track and like a timeline, and just communication or reaching out to us, any one of us. And I got a lot of good information from the two that were in discussion with us here today, because I thought like, oh my God, like what do I do now? Like I'm the only one in this boat, but you know, it's just the growing pains of it.
Mhm.
And then we're glad to share any information or anything that we've gone through or how we've overcome some of the issues. It's a lesson learned, as long as we're back online.
Excellent. Linnea, what's the secret sauce?
Ooh, I was like, can somebody bottle that for me? So, I mean, I'm going to be the first to admit, we've made mistakes over the last 6 years. If I could go back in time, I would probably make certain decisions on things. But like Angela said, like that's the growing pains of it all. One thing that we have a lot of vendors that are wanting to reach out and wanting to grab our business, right? It's making sure that you're asking those specific questions on, proof of your technology. Is it bench tested? What version of your software or hardware are you on? Questions that we didn't know at the time. And don't be afraid to, ask those tough questions. They need to provide sound equipment, and you have absolutely every right to ask all of those questions, because you need smart technology decisions on behalf of your network. Because once you purchase a holistic system, it's not like you're stuck with that, but you're kind of stuck with that for a bit until you can either rip and replace or buy new systems. I would also say that we're also having to look, even though we're just starting construction, we're having to realize there's certain technology, certain electronics that we're going to have to replace in the next 5 to 7 years. So it's also foresight on the network production years down the road that you're going to have to prepare for now. So it's just thinking about those smart decisions. Again, for sustainability, our ultimate goal is to serve tribal areas that have been left out for so long, and we really need to be successful. I'm really proud of the two women that I'm on, because it's nice to see longevity. It's nice to see Angela and her work as well, that's going through some of the same things. And I feel, that's strong. There's some strong Native power right there. And those women that are leading networks. Don't be afraid to make mistakes, because they're going to happen. Choose strong partners. Choose wisely who you're bringing on your team. And ultimately, there's going to be some bumps in the road, but you will be successful in the future, especially if you keep pushing and doing it for your community, and if your heart is in the right place. So I believe in that.
So if you want to have any of these conversations live, I suggest you go to a Tribal Broadband Bootcamp. Find out about new events at tribalbroadbandbootcamp.org. We have one coming up in August 18th at Sault Ste. Marie in Upper Peninsula, Michigan. And we have another couple set for the end of the year. And I think there are going to be some amazing events this year. So please check in there, see if it fits your schedule. We'd love to have you. There's travel support. We want to thank the Tribal Resource Center for supporting us in this effort, as well as these wonderful panelists. Happy to call them all friends and colleagues and peers. It's been a wonderful run. I can't wait to have, the rest of our years together solving these issues for Indian country. Thanks, Linnea. Thanks, Angela. Thanks, Valerie. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, everyone.